So welcome everybody to today's meeting. We'll get straight into it. There isn't a massive agenda in front of us today, but no doubt this is the first time that we've met this year. And there are one of two things that have come up under discussion. Some of those I'll bring up in my chair's report later. We do have two people from Meridian joining us. So Mel Shah is joining, and they're just going to give us an update on the Meridian funding arrangements and the Power Up Fund, and just really to continue in the vein that we have been working with for some time now, and that's actually just, and getting connected with various people in our community, and then being able to kind of understand what's going on so that we can enable and support things that we do. Hopefully our connection will be kind to us today and that we won't necessarily have any technical errors. So I'm expecting Mel to join reasonably soon. So we'll get into the agenda. There is an apology today from Max. So could I ask that somebody move that we accept that apology, please? Thank you, Brian, and a seconder as well, please. Thanks, Ben. So all those in favour, please say yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's carried. As far as I'm aware, we have no leaves of absence. Is that right? Okay. And are there any conflicts of interest from anybody on our agenda today?
Possibly just for which was just upcoming talks on your report there about the car parking outside Kepler's, but other than that, nothing.
Good. Thanks, Ryan. So we haven't seen Mel arrive yet. So what I'm going to do is we're going to just carry on and keep going until they do actually join us. So are there any extraordinary or urgent items on today's agenda that anybody wants to bring up? No? Good. And so then we will move on, and on page 15, we have the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 20th of December. Could I ask that somebody move that be recorded as a true and accurate record of that meeting? Please. Somebody, thank you, Ryan. And a seconder. Thanks, Mary. All those in favour, please say yes.
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 Excellent. Okay. Lagi, from just a quick question from a procedural point of view, would you like me to scan these to you as a signed copy?
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Right. Okay, so moving on then to page 23. We still don't have Mel. I'm just going to make sure that, Lagi, can you just confirm that Mel would have received the Zoom as well?
I'll just check, and then, but yeah, just carry on with the meeting while I check.
We'll carry on the meeting. If you could just perhaps make sure that she's got that connection.
Thank you.
If not,
I'll send her a text to see whether she has.
okay, perfect. Thanks, Simon. All right, so moving on then, we'll go straight to the operational report on page 25.
Okay, thank you. Operational report, as usual, take it as read. It's just a couple of things to note. Obviously, there's some the ones that usually get the attention of the off-track ones. So there's some there under the water supply and the wastewater. The detail, or at least an idea of what's at issue there, is in the table below. And then under the financials, there's a good discussion here around the reasons for the different variances. I think probably the big one in this report is page 38. So that is the one that talks about. Excellent. We've got meetings being recorded now. Is the one around the stormwater reserves and the transfer of that back to the general reserve for the Fiordland Community Board. So that is just over, what is it, 556,000. So that goes back into the general reserve for you to use in the future.
That's great. So working through the report, everybody, are there any questions, comments?
I'd like to say something, Sarah, just briefly. Something that Ryan brought up at our last meeting, and something that's on the agenda, of course, to happen at some stage, about fixing up the ramps. The lake is still quite low. Is it worthwhile going sooner than later when it's filled up?
Sorry?
The boat ramps that in Te Anau here, they're going to be extended and one's going to be widened. Why the lake is so low, and Ryan brought this up at our last meeting, is it not a good idea to work smarter and faster on that than leave it till the winter and the lake's full again?
Yeah. The short answer is yes, it would be. But the long answer, unfortunately, is that there is some consent requirements and things that we've got to go through. We've also got to get the contracts in place for it because it's also through the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. So whilst it would be nice to do it right now, we're not actually in the position to kick off those bits of work straight away, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I also highlighted, you would have all got a copy of the time frame in terms of how long it will take to do all the various things that we have, including the boat ramps, which is looking at approximately 10 days to do those works as well. So we need to be mindful that we don't interrupt any holiday periods, busy weekends, any opportunities for our town to be generating revenue. We need to be extremely mindful of that, particularly in our current environment, because anything that we do that potentially is going to disrupt that ability for people in our community to be generating an income is not going to be taken favourably. So we just need to be mindful of that. Abel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just Simon, if you can just provide confirmation that the tourism infrastructure funding is not at risk due to the delay of getting resource consents and getting contracts in place.
So we saw an extension for the issues that were causing the delay, and so we've got that until the end of March
Of this year.
Yes, to get the permits in place.
And you're confident that we'll get all that done by the end of March?
That's the plan. That's what the team's working to.
Right, so failure on that will then put that at risk, wouldn't it? And I presume that the rest of the team are fully aware of that?
Yes, they are.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for raising that for clarification. Yeah, I think it's those projects are vitally important to our area. So yeah, if everybody is mindful of that, then they definitely need to take precedence. Okay. Does anybody else have any other issues in terms of this overall report?
And I just had a question, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So I was just on the request for service. There's an awful lot of water leaks, over 100 water leaks in town between Toby's and just general water leaks. Was there a particular trend, do you know, to that, or is that sort of just part of the ageing infrastructure that's already being on its way to being fixed, or just seems quite a high number?
I think what really shows up these things is the having a dry old time, and I think any year that we do have a good dry, then obviously you can see that these things are happening more than you can when you've got a sort of an average season. So yeah, you'd expect to see more of those requests in seasons like we've got at the moment.
Okay, so there wasn't anything specific that it was coming from to be worried about?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can ask the question if you'd like.
Well, we can perhaps get an outline on that. I think the other thing that we should bear in mind is that very often at this time of year, people are visiting our properties, and so you probably expect to see a spike with people that are quite often absent from the town visiting their property or the surrounds of their properties, and highlighting issues that might have come to light while they're here.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Councillor Kramer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's the other important factor is that it's good to see people actually reporting it, because that gives an opportunity to fix those leaks rather than it just continue to be leaking away. So in one sense, I'm pleased to see them. And I think that in addition to Simon's comments, a lot of the old infrastructure is also causing us some problems as well. So I know that they are on the list to be replaced over time, but certainly we are dealing with some older pipes and connections, so that does have an impact. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The other thing that I will just raise here is the contract I have raised already with staff, the mowing of the entry to town, and that is being looked at so that it is kept tidy and up to date. Okay, any other questions or comments from anybody?
Through you, Madam Chair, just one thing I did pick up on the other day leaving town was our new signs have been have twisted themselves out of shape already. So one of the new signs, I think it's the one heading out of town towards Mosman. The left-hand post, the post closest to the road, is warped and put quite a bend in the whole sign. Something to be aware of. Possibly just wet timber at the time, and with the dry season that we've had, it's dried out and now has the front of the sign sort of tilting forward. So it's possibly something that needs to be looked at sooner rather than later, as they are brand new.
Yeah, I'm aware that there were some requirements to make those signs even more frangible than they were when they were initially put in. My understanding was that that required either additional drilling of holes so that they were going to be, if they were hit by anything, they would break easier than perhaps they would have done when they went in originally. But we can certainly raise that and have a look at it. There is still some work, and as far as I am aware, and I haven't double checked in the recent last week or so, there is still the site, the Mosman entry sign, not the Mosman, the Manipuri entry sign to be moved.
Yeah, possibly they can have a look at it. It looks like it's moved probably 100, 150 mil. at the top. So it's a fairly big twist in the post that it's on. So it's only going to get worse.
Yep. If necessary, we'll put an RFS for that, but I can highlight it with Angie or Mark.
Yep.
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to add to that, you can't read that sign while leaving town either. We've already touched on that just to make sure that they follow up on that and maybe adjust its location.
Are you referring to the Mosburn, Tiana?
No, yes, I am, yes, yeah. It says,
So
thank you, you're leaving Tiana, or you can't even read it.
Yeah, there is some discussion in place already. So we just need to give staff an opportunity to manage that one.
Yep.
Okay, all right. So any other comments? Have we exhausted all the questions around that? Okay.
Madam Chair, just on those boat ramps, just before we leave that, just to make sure, and I'm sure they're not, but just so they attack one at a time. So dock end, 1, 4 or 5 days, then attack the other one, not both at the same time. So we've still got a functioning boat ramp for any public users. I'm sure they're going to do that, but just to double check that.
Yeah, I think you'll find that the part of the setup of this is actually having the same contractor do all the ramps for economies of scale purposes.
Okay.
So
one at a time. Yeah.
I think I don't think that will be done all at the same time. They won't, that won't be within capacity, but they will look at doing them probably all at the same time, one after the other.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay, so in terms of the operational report, can I have a mover for that report, please? That we accept that report.
I'll move that, Sarah.
Thank you, Ben. And a seconder, please.
Yep, I will, Diane.
Thanks, Diane. Okay, all those in favour, please say yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Good. So that's carried. Simon, we'll move on to the community leadership report, please. Page 39 of our agenda.
Okay. Again, take this as read. There's a couple of things in there around Community Partnership Fund. Obviously, there's an actual report on that coming up after this one. And we've already talked about the stormwater services. There's the community board roles and responsibilities. So this is something that you would have received, I think, just prior to Christmas. I'm not sure whether the board's had a chance to have a chat or a workshop at all yet, but if you can as soon as possible, that would be really good. So essentially what that does is it's taken the Winton workshop with the chairs and I think the deputy chairs was based on that community board health check. It was Elizabeth Hughes' report. And one of the things came out of that was just clarification of what roles and responsibilities sit where. So what you've received is a document that has a breakdown of the stuff that's in the front of your agenda, and they are the current roles and responsibilities for all boards. And obviously Fiordland has the additional one of the airport, and Stewart Island Rakiura has CIASA, or the Stewart Island electrical system. So what it's basically asking is you to go through and have a look at that and go, well, does this pretty adequately cover what we want to make decisions on, what we think we should be making decisions on for our community, or if not, what are those things that aren't covered in there? So it's part of getting that feedback directly from the boards, and then taking that through to a discussion with council. But it would be, as I said before, it would be really good if we can get some feedback on that as soon as possible. The next bit in there, I think we've got the bylaws and policy section, so that's dealing with a few things that are coming up there. The privacy policy and contract management, alcohol control bylaw. I think already had some discussion on that one with Robin as well earlier on. There was a discussion yesterday at council around the request around the animal control bylaw, or for the dogs. And I think Councillor Kramer will cover that off shortly in his update. The Leadership Academy is there's one being held in Otata. They've been pretty well received. I think there's been 2 that have been run already. So essentially, this is just a heads up. This one's happening in June this year, and looking for people to put their names forward for that. There are some opportunities to get some funding to help pay, cover the cost of signing up to that, and the link is there. But as I said, I think that's been run on Rakiura. There's one in Northern Southland. I think there was one in Edendale, and some really good feedback on that. And lastly, there is the emergency management Southland. So obviously, there's been some discussions by this board and others in recent times around civil defence. And this is emergency management looking to update those community response plans, which I think were done maybe 3 years ago. And obviously they're pretty conscious of the situation for everybody and certainly for Fiordland, between floods and pandemics. But again, it's an opportunity to be involved in updating those. If there are any questions, happy to have a crack at those.
I guess probably one question I have is, we don't need to name names at this point. I'm just wondering if we have any people that we think in our community that, we maybe even should think about shoulder tapping for the Leadership Academy. Whether that would be a good idea for us to either promote it through our Facebook page, kind of shoulder tap people, or just point them in the direction of the scholarship. Or is it well enough subscribed, Simon, without us having to do that?
No, I mean, I think it's one of those ones where whatever channels that we've got to get people interested and involved, we should use them. If we end up being oversubscribed, well, then you have a look at whether it's an opportunity to actually run 2, or another one at another point in time. So I wouldn't, I'd be encouraging people as much as possible to get involved, and then go from there.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Kramer?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I think it's a good idea to use the community board's Facebook page, and the more advertisement, the better we can do, and just seek registration of interest. And that will certainly identify whether you need 1 or 2 rounds of that. So yeah, any sort of advertisement we can do, I think would be a good thing. What about the local paper? What's his name? Ian Campbell.
The Trader.
The Trader, yeah. Maybe that's another avenue, just to put something in there. People seem to be looking at that quite intensely, so it may be another avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, there'll be a close-off date. Is there a close-off date for applications, Simon? I wouldn't necessarily think that people would commit this far out, but maybe if we did it sort of 8 to 12 weeks in advance.
Good question. I suspect that information will be on that link, but I haven't.
Go on and have a look and check that. Just going back to the survey for community board roles and responsibilities, I've just had a quick look. I haven't received any survey that I can find currently. I know that there was a workshop that was due to take place in December that Fran sent information out about, but that didn't eventuate because the timing before Christmas just got too tight for everybody.
I would have thought that would have come from Fran or perhaps Louise prior to Christmas.
Yeah, I've got an email that says a survey will be coming, dated early December, but I don't have.
Okay. I'll
And I've certainly not completed a survey. This.
so no one from this board has received.
Can anybody else recall receiving a survey sometime between the 2nd of December and now?
No.
Mm.
Okay, I'll chase that up then. So that
Yeah.
And just for you, Sarah, I've just sent you a text around that that other item.
Right. Okay. Cool. Any other questions from the rest of the board? Abel, would you like to leave the outcome of the dog bylaw to your report, or do you want to talk about it now?
Oh, look, I can do it now.
As well.
There were 2 applications for bylaw review. One was on the Stewart Island, and one was the Fiordland Community Board with the dog control review. The current dog control review for bylaw review for Fiordland Tiana is not due until 24-25, I think it is. The staff identified that these 2 reviews were in addition to their workload already, and they just don't have the capabilities of undertaking that review at this stage. I batted for Fiordland, but also had to recognise that you've got to take a more district-wide view as well, and listening to the manager on all the additional reviews that are taking place at the moment, government reform, Resource Manage Act, you name it, it's all happening. And they just actually run off their feet at the moment. So they were not able to commit to doing the dog review for Tiana. They clearly indicated when it does happen, it's going to be a very extensive exercise. It's not just going to be a 5-minute job, because they certainly want to have a good understanding of what the community and the wider district would really want to do. So unfortunately, I've got the bad news saying that it's not going to be done this year, but it will be done in the future in 24-25. If they have capacity prior to that date, they will bring that forward.
Okay. All right. So I think probably the next discussion then is to actually look at how we communicate that to the community.
Yeah.
Because there has been a significant discussion online. There's been petitions signed, etc., etc. I think we need to now front foot this off the back of council's decision, and respect the, staff have put significant effort into project managing various things into various timeframes, and if something gets a priority, then something else has to be sacrificed. So I think it's about how we now communicate that.
We did challenge staff as to if the Tiana dog control bylaw were to be bumped up onto the list of what was going to drop off, and all the significant reviews that are taking place, there was nothing there that we could see warranted to be dropped off or go below the line, and the dog control come above that. So they have done a very significant prioritisation program, and so I mean they did put the effort in. How we articulate that, and how we police or enforce the current bylaw, Who knows?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that there's probably, from what I've seen, there's a lot of complacency around the bylaw now anyway with this season. I don't think anyone's really abiding by it. Multiple businesses have put dog bowls out in front of them, in front of their establishments. Is there just leniency when it comes to that side of things that is through the dog control? Or
Well, I mean, at the moment, you'd be putting council staff in a most awkward position. There is a bylaw. There is a responsibility for that to be upheld. And as I say, how that is upheld is a matter of management. But we could certainly not suggest that there is a let's say a blind eye turn to it, because that is our bylaw. That was the process we went through. That's the process the community went through some time ago, and that is something that we need to uphold. And certainly couldn't ask staff to not uphold it.
Agreed.
Yeah, agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So Diane, it's very glitchy.
I think it's important in the communication to focus on that 5. It's not a
We can't hear you, Diane. Start again.
Diane, you've just turned yourself onto mute. If you turn your camera off, that might actually help the glitches. Turn your camera.
My camera is on.
It is on. We
No,
can
you're
see.
right.
That's it. Try again. Okay, your camera's off now. Do you want to try again? No. You there, Diane?
Right, I've turned the camera off. Maybe the sound will work.
That's better.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I can hear you. Hang on, I'll type.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh,
That's
right.
better.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's
No.
better.
Okay. If you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I was only going to say, I think it'd be really good in the communication to focus on that. It will be reviewed in a couple of years. It's not a no, it's a we'll look at it. It will be looked at.
Yeah. Just
to take the sting out of the people who are very passionate about it getting upset.
Yeah. Okay. I think the key with that is perhaps I can have a discussion with Louise and we'll see where we can take that to. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns on this report, please? No. Okay. Can I ask that somebody move that we accept the report then?
Aye.
Thank you, Mary. And a seconder, please. Thanks, Ryan. All those in favour, please say yes.
Aye.
In favour?
Aye.
Okay, that's carried. All right. Moving on then, page 45 of our agenda, we have the council report.
Okay, so I'll take you through this one as well. Very briefly, you'll note in the first paragraph there, or the Chief Executive's update, the review for local government, and then the interim report has been released. And he just notes there at the bottom that as soon as the dates for that are finalised, then that will be passed on to both the councillors and the community boards. So something to bear in mind, that it's going to come up likely in the next month or so by the looks of that, and it talks about the first quarter. Just moving down to, and if you want to stop me anyway through here with a question, that's fine. But moving on to the community facilities, just the first bullet point that's in there, and I think this is happening across the board for us, is just the difficulty in attracting contractors on the smaller value ones, and that is leading to some frustration from boards, and well, actually, and for staff as well, in terms of trying to be able to get those things done in the time frame that that has been agreed to, because at the moment there is tends to be enough larger work out there that it's the stuff that gets bumped down the list, and whilst you think that you've got somebody lined up to do it in January, it might be not until April or May that you can actually get someone there if you're lucky. So it's just something to be aware of. It is, along with material supply issues and things, it's a significant problem at the moment. What else did I have there? Valuations. So down in the finance section on page 48, there's been a bit of interest in that at the moment. Clearly, the valuations across the district have gone up, and that will flow through to how rates are collected, not the amount of rates, but just who pays sort of what proportion of them. I just note from Cameron. Have you got a question, Diane?
No.
Just the cycle trail stuff.
Sorry. My dog just jumped on me. Sorry. Carry on.
I was pretty sure you're talking to Simon.
No, your name's Sadie. Sorry.
I can leave now if you like.
Is that what you?
Carry on, I'll mute myself before I talk to her again. First you can't hear
Classic.
me, and then you're hearing things you shouldn't hear.
Classic.
Right, so the just comment that Cameron made around the cycle trail, he was on the weekend, I think, and there was a really good group, a guided group going through there. Then he thought it was sort of around 50 people, so that was good to hear. Just having a quick flick. Yeah, unless there's any questions on the rest of it, it's probably the building consents as you'd expect, with it being quite busy. There's some good numbers in there, and also Stewart Island's been doing very well out of domestic tourism over the last 18 months or so. But yeah, any other questions? Happy to see what we can do.
Is that around the mountain cycle trail you were just talking about then? I was just going to bring up, if it's the right time, I can do it later on. I'm going to Manipuri quite a bit this recently because I'm helping to teach kids how to drive. And I noticed there's so many cyclists coming along, and the Manipuri road's not really wide enough on either side for a cycle to go. I wondered if it's possible to maybe make this one side a bit wider with the asphalt, so that there's actually somewhere they can get off the road on their cycles.
I think that's one, obviously, the state highway through there, so it'd certainly be something that you would put to them. I think one of the a response you'd probably get is that there's that investment in the lake to lake cycle trail off to the side of it, that they would be more likely trying to encourage people to use that and be off the road so that they're completely separated, than making it wider. But yeah, certainly NZTE TA would be the avenue there. Mary?
It's just that they are going all the way back to Tiana, a lot of them, and the road's quite busy.
I think we have to recognise where people have choice. People have choice to either go on the road or they have choice to use the trail, and the trail is there if people want to use it. In addition, Waka Kotahi also did contribute to the trail when it came onto the road. So there is a piece between Supply Bay Road and Balloon Loop, I think it is, where it was there was actually track put in so that people could be off-road. And in addition to that, they put the barriers up where the trail briefly comes onto the road as well. So I think we do have to be mindful that NZTA have actually made some significant contribution there. So Councillor Kramer.
Yeah, just to support you there, Madam Chair. In addition to that, NZTA are certainly in significant financial constraints, and we certainly found that out as we went through our long-term plan, and the funding was cut back there. So for funding to achieve will be in addition to what they're currently funding for a, let's say, a semi-cycle lane between Te Anau Manipuri, to be honest, would be highly unlikely. And as I say, everybody's trying to bid for the same dollar to get their roads done, to get their bridges done throughout New Zealand. And as the chair has already pointed out, there is a cycle trail already there between Te Anau Manipuri. And if they choose to ride on the open road, then that is their decision. So I
know that's fair enough. It's just there is just that certain area where they're not on the track. That's all.
Yep, it's be highly unlikely. I think you'd be pushing it uphill to get that.
I think also on top of that, when we consider volumes, that pre-COVID volumes where people were using the road when they were training for things like the Milford Mountain Classic, people are they use that as a loop. To a degree, it does come back down to people being drivers being respectful as well of bikes on roads. Just being mindful of that too. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? I did note, probably it's worth raising here, if anybody raises this in the community, is that with rates due on Friday, the council did advertise that the office was going to be open for contactless payment of rates. So just be aware that if you do hear anything around that, there is an option to do that. If you haven't seen any information on it, I think it's on our Facebook page and that was widely circulated. So just take a look so that you are aware that there are options that have been put in place where offices have been opened up so that payments of rates can be made.
Excuse me there, Sarah, is that at the library or at the office?
I would need to double check.
It was at the office.
I think it was at the office. I think that's where they've got a more controlled environment. Yeah. Cool. All right. Are there any other questions from anybody?
Ben, you're on mute.
Sorry, go again. Through you, Sarah, for you, Simon. Just a question on the Manipuri wastewater treatment plant, that $4 million budget there for planning and consulting. Is that going to be added to once you decide as to what your next steps are? It does say working group ongoing, or is that $4 million just for consulting and planning as to the final design?
That was the budget that was in the long-term plan for doing everything. I think it will depend entirely on what the final solution ends up being and what the cost of that that tender looks like. But that wasn't just for the consultants.
Yep. And can you tell me, are they still considering the idea of moving it back to Te Anau and then sending it back again, or is that just an initial idea?
Do you want me to comment on that, Simon?
Yes, Abel, yes.
That might be a good idea.
There are 4 options that are being considered at this stage, which the consultants are working up. And 2 of those options do look at the possibility of taking the untreated wastewater from Manipuri to Te Anau. Then it gets treated there, and then it goes back down the pipe to Kepler. And then there's 2 other options whereby that doesn't occur and it goes direct to the discharge field at Kepler. So those 4 options are still being worked up. And there is one further option that is being considered as well. So it'll be possibly there could be 5. And we're just looking at those and seeing which one, let's say, makes the most economical sense and get the best value for money, but also produces the results that we're after. We're also very mindful that we don't want to see mixing untreated. We don't want to see the wastewater, untreated wastewater from Manipuri go into the treated wastewater of Te Anau. So we're very mindful of how that's going to have to be managed. But I think the way it's looking at the moment, that the option of pumping it firstly to Te Anau for treatment is probably highly unlikely.
That is good. And
Simon's correct with the 4 million. That was a budget that was put in as part of the long-term plan, and we had to put something in there. Whether it pans out to be 4 million is yet to be established. Okay.
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Cheers.
I think that probably leads me on just to an overarching comment that the board should be really mindful of, and that's that globally we are aware of the rising costs of various things, whether it be everything from engine parts, moving parts, jib board, building materials, you name it. Everything seems to either be subject to global delays and accessing those types of things, or increasing costs. From a board perspective, I think we just need to be mindful of that moving forwards, because some of the budgets that we've had set were done quite some time ago now. So just not that I'm saying that things should be deferred or that we shouldn't keep them on our agenda. I think it's really a matter of just having that awareness of some of these things.
If I may add to that, Madam Chair, is that previously with council projects, we had a line item of a contingency around 20%, 15 to 20% in any given project. We are now looking at 30 to 40% because of the increase in costs from the time you actually look at a project to the time you actually start implementing. So that gives you a very clear indication of the type of increase in costs that are actually occurring. And yes, we need to be mindful of that, because some of the projects that we have air tagged, they're certainly going to come out quite different to what we thought with regards to price. Yep, absolutely right, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So on that note then, Councillor Kramer, are you aware whether that's been applied across the community board projects, or is that just at council level projects?
We're looking at that for all projects.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a vein that's going right through.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Okay. I think these are the types of things that we need to make sure are well communicated. We've got projects coming up where, for example, we've got, the review of all the playgrounds to look at. So, whatever we can do, we will do in as timely way as possible. However, if we are sourcing stuff, either from overseas or from, or where there's high demand for things, and manufacturing in New Zealand isn't the same. We just have to be very aware.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Simon and Abel, for that. Can I ask then that somebody move that we receive this report?
I did it, Sarah.
Thank you, Ben. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Mary. All those in favour, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So we now move on to page 55 on our agenda. This is the Community Partnership Funding Rounds, which closed on the 31st of January. I think that you'll see that the report is split out into various aspects, that we receive the applications and then individually we look at approving or declining those grants accordingly. So we have 3 to consider. And so I think the best way to approach this is just to take each one as it stands. You'll see on the executive summary on page 51 that $10,000 has already been allocated in the first round, with another 5,000 tagged from this round. So we've got $16,542 remaining for this round and the final round, and that we have $15,000 worth of requests within this funding. So we need to take account of that and make a decision whether we accept the full 5,000 across all these grants, whether we scale those back so that we have some additional funding left, or whether we feel that these projects are of significance or significance in terms of not needing us to retain further funds for the final round in May. Okay. So on that basis, shall we just look at each one individually? So let's take the Fiordland Endurance and Adventure Racing Society first. So this is for the next round of the indoor wall at the climbing centre, at the event centre, the low bouldering wall. And I'm sure that everybody is aware of that particular project. They've been fundraising through various avenues for a little while. So thoughts on that project, please. Okay. Are we supportive?
I think it's a good idea.
Partially supportive.
I don't do it myself, but I know that the kids that are there that do it, and the adults, and it's really got a good following. Are they looking for some more funding, are they? Or?
Yep, so they've requested $5,000. The total project cost is $168,000. You'll see on their application.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd be partially supportive of this. It is a great thing for the community. They have only just recently sort of finished that main wall, so the bouldering side of things would be a great addition. I'm just aware that there's probably others in these next couple of polls that are probably more needy of funding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll recall that we have supported the original climbing hall both at a community partnership level, at a council level. So the original wall has had substantial
from us.
Some fairly substantial funds from us when we compare it to other people that we've supported.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? All right, well, we don't need to make a decision on each one in turn. So let's have a look at the second one. So this is the Fiordland Business Association. And so what they are looking at doing here is providing both governance and media training to their board. So they have they've managed to secure a discount so far. And so this is a one-off program of work for 2022. The committee members will be able to provide on-the-job training to future committee members as part of the induction process. The total project cost is $5,820, and they are seeking $5,000. And they have cash savings of $820. So, Councillor Kramer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to speak in support of this application. The reason being is that this is a new organisation. There's new people there. Some may not have experience in a governance role. And I think for this group to be successful in the work they're doing for this community long term, I think would really benefit from this type of training and education. I think what's happened in the past, we've set up committees, forums, and we go, hey, that's great, see you later, we walk away. And they flounder, they don't have the appropriate skills or connections, and they fail. And at times we could become quite critical of that. In fact, we've actually let that happen. So my view is that, and the reason why I'm supportive, because I did so much working in establishing this setup, that I really like to support the business association as best as we possibly can. And this is one way that we can really support that group. And I think the flow-on effect throughout the community and the business community, which then has a flow-on effect to the people that they employ, et cetera, I think would be a really, really worthwhile. So I'm putting a real plug in there for what they've asked for. It's a 5K. Naturally, it's up to the rest of the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, I tend to agree with Abel on that, on his words. He's the business association has probably got a lot on their plate especially over the next 6 to 12 months. So having those skills to be able to convey with not only their members, but general public and media is definitely warrantable for us giving them a hand in that funding.
Agree.
Hi.
Me too, I agree.
Okay, great. So that's a fully supportive of. So let's cover off the last one and then we'll come back to allocations. So the last one is the Manipuri Weed Busters. So this is costs associated with purchasing and planting trees and fauna along the walkway by Lake Manipuri. So if we just take a look at this particular application. So planting over a large area where we've been clearing a thick forest for the last 4 years, we estimate we need another 1,000 trees. And they also add as old walking tracks have been opened and made user-friendly. They must have counters on the tracks. So over the holiday period, December to January, 443 people used the tracks. Enhancing and expanding the forest area and walkways for easy walking distance of the Manipuri township. Doesn't look like they've specifically applied anywhere else. Costs are minimal, so it's actually just the purchase of the trees. So let's gather some thoughts on this one. We'd like to kick off. Diane.
Oh, yep. I spoke with Angie and Bridget yesterday, because of course the tree review and the foreshore is going on, just to make sure that Weed Busters had been liaising with them and what they're doing and what their goals are, and that they reassured me that they had been. So they were generally supportive of what Weed Busters were doing here, and just to cover that off.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, other thoughts? Anybody else?
I just think that Weed Busters do such a fantastic job over there. I'm not quite sure where they're planting them, but I know it'll be worthwhile. Certainly dedicated.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else?
Just in support of the comments that Mary made, that I've certainly met with them on several occasions, and I've seen where they've been working, and they do a fantastic job. And I've got to say that if it wasn't for the Manipuri Weed Busters, that whole area would look quite different. It would have been absolute jungle and absolute mess, and they've certainly done a fantastic job there. So I would certainly have no hesitation in supporting their application based on what they're actually achieving.
Okay, cool.
Oh, sorry. The other thing, Madam Chair, is when speaking with Angie, she's also put them in touch with people from Environment Southland about funding and getting something set up with them as well.
Okay, so that's worth knowing. I did wonder whether they would have access to other funds, or whether they had been hooked into the Jobs for Nature, where Environment Southland were taking the lead on that. Potentially, potentially not, given there were probably specifics for that project as well. Okay, so what I'm hearing from everybody is there is a strong approval for the business association. There is certainly an appetite for Manipuri Weed Busters, but perhaps less appetite for the climbing wall. Is that accurate summary?
Right.
Okay, so on that basis, what I'd like to do is just work this backwards. If we spend $15,000, we are only going to have 1,600 and something, I think, left. 1,542 left. So we have some choices to make here.
Through you, Madam Chair. Also, with the last round of funding being in, when does that end? In May?
May.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I think that possibly if we can try and keep a bit of this aside for that last round, would be a wise decision by us. As we know, this is probably going to be the most complicated time that we've had in this pandemic. So there will be highly possible that there's more people come forward looking for assistance. So my opinion would be that if we were wise to possibly at least keep half aside for the next round going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly supportive personally of that comment. I think we do need to keep some back. I don't think we should be spending all of this in this round by any means. Okay, so let's make some decisions. FBA, so the Fiordland Business Association. I'll just add my thoughts in on this one. I'll add my thoughts on each one. So from an FBA point of view, I'm supportive of this as well. I do think that what we have is a group of volunteers here who, even if they were to leave the Fiordland Business Association, and that they might train the next people coming in, you don't lose those skills. So they are people who will be in our community, potentially volunteering in other capacities, and that will therefore translate those skills actually into other boards. So from that perspective, the more voluntary boards that we can see that are well done and well operated here in town actually gives each board that they may join far greater credibility, far greater ability to run those boards effectively, and rather than delving into operational things, they will rub off on the rest of another board and maintain that governance element to that board. So I think there's some future benefits that we can actually read into this as well, rather than, so there's an indirect benefit to our community as opposed to just an immediate direct benefit here. So on that basis, am I hearing that people are supportive of the full 5,000?
Yes.
Diane, sorry, you just turn your volume on again. Yeah, yes. Okay.
Yes, I'm having technical difficulties. You cut out completely. But if you said, are we supportive of giving the full amount, then my answer is yes.
Okay, can I just have a show of hands then? Is everybody supportive of giving the full 5,000 to the FBA? Perfect. All right. So yes. 5,000. So we'll, Lagi will go through the actual resolutions in a minute. So 5,000 to FBA. Okay. Let's go to the climbing wall next. As has already been indicated, there has been substantial money go into the other climbing wall. They have been successful in securing over $110,000. So they're not, whilst it's a fairly big project, there's probably opportunity for them to continue fundraising through different avenues that some of these other entities don't get an opportunity to fundraise through. So do we give them anything, I think is the question.
Personally, I'd say hold back, and if they're still struggling come May, the second round, the last round, they can always reapply.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a fair comment. Yeah.
I'm with you, Ryan. Yeah.
Good point. Yep.
It gives them plenty of time to for further fundraising and to try whether or not they are struggling to meet that final target.
Yeah, that's a fair and valid point. They could always reapply, and there's nothing to bind. Nobody is prohibited from reapplying for any of these grants as we go through. And I think that would be a good approach, especially given that they have had substantial funding out of this particular fund before.
Yep.
So
okay.
if I may, Madam Chair, then when it is communicated to this group that they've been unsuccessful in this round of applications, that it doesn't prevent them from reapplying at the next round.
Correct.
Just to give them that signal. Correct. So the door's not shut. So I think it's a fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think it's an incredible project. It connects our youth to activities and gives our youth things that they are able to do. I think it's inherent on the board to try and spread our funding and our funding allocations across as many sectors as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And that in making this decision, it's a decision that's based on trying to make that allocation for each year as broad as it possibly can be.
Through you, Madam Chair, as Muzza was implying, do we just move that 5,000 goes to the Business Association and 2,500 to Manipuri Weed Busters, then we carry on the 8,000 till next year? Is that our best bet?
Well, we'll just, what we'll do is we'll say, yeah, we'll just move on next and discuss Weed Busters and have a look at what we do allocate to Weed Busters.
Yeah.
So next part of the conversation, what do we allocate to Weed Busters? So Ben, are you saying about 2,500? We allocate
We
half?
can carry on a good amount till the next funding round.
I agree with Ben there.
Yeah, I think it's wise.
Yeah.
Support that.
Yeah. And I think we're the first place that they've applied to for funding. So they've still got quite a few avenues to go down.
Right. Yeah.
It will show that we appreciate it.
But it also shows that the community board, the Fiordland Community Board, recognises Manipuri as being part of our community. We're one family, and I think that's a very important part as well.
Yeah, totally agree, Abel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the work that the Manipuri Weed Busters have done has been quite significant, and they have certainly been very mindful of clearing a lot more weeds and a lot more ground and a lot further along various corridors.
And picking up rubbish. And
amongst other things. And there's certainly a huge and substantial amount of man hours and effort that have gone in. So I think this is recognition of that effort. 1,000 trees is an awful lot to plant as well. So again, maybe there is opportunity for them to also return at another point in time, whether it be next financial year potentially, and to apply to continue the work that they're doing. Okay, so what I'd like to do then is I'm just going to go through the just make sure everybody's supportive of that 2,500, please.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so Lagi, here we go. So the recommendation is that the community board is supportive and receives the report A through to D. So we'll move that we accept the report and that we receive the applications. I'm going to do this separately. So can I have somebody move that we accept the report and receive the application? So that's points A through D. Can I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Abel. And a seconder. The seconder, please.
All right.
Thanks, Ryan. So that's A to D. Then in terms of point E, we are at this point going to decline a grant of $5,000 to the Fiordland Endurance and Adventure Racing Society to assist with the construction of the climbing wall. However, invite them to reapply in future rounds. So can I? So could I ask that somebody moves that we do that, please? Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
And a seconder, Diane.
I'll second.
Is that you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Point F, that we approve a grant of $5,000 to the Fiordland Business Association to assist with the costs of governance and media courses for the Business Association members. Have a mover and a seconder, please, for that.
I'll certainly move that, Madam Chair.
Moved by Abel, thank you, and a seconder for that, please. Ryan, thank you. And finally, point G, that we approve a grant of $2,500 to Manipuri Weed Busters for the costs associated with purchasing and planting trees and fauna along the walkway beside Lake Manipuri. Firstly, I just want to, Diane, in your opinion, do we need to do we need to make any comment around what you were discussing with Angie and Bridget, or is there no need for us to do that?
Sorry, it cut out again. Is there any need to make any comment on what?
What you were discussing with Angie and Bridget.
Oh, I don't think so. I think they would just get the money. I think the conversation is going to take place outside of, in terms of seeking funding from Environment Southland or anywhere else.
Okay, that's right. Well, so we will take this as it stands then, without any amendments, that we approve a grant of $2,500 to Manipuri Weed Busters, as is written here on the agenda. Can I have somebody move that we do that? A mover, please, Ryan, and a seconder, please. Thank you,
Mary.
Mary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, all those in favour, please say yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, that is carried. All right, so our last report is my report, page 67. Not going to spend a massive amount of time on this one either. Some general things for discussion. So page 67, so meetings and events. So the Te Hautoka Southern Wellbeing Group that I am on, representing the Fiordland Community Board, there was a workshop back in January. The contract to really investigate what was needed here in Fiordland has basically been completed. So there is a very big report done by Leadership Lab, where they've identified some specific needs within the community. They range across the different things. A lot of it is around connection of people to services, and connection of people of all different types of things, that where they can help, get help, and also where they can get support. The next round of funding for the small community grant that they've got running is open again from Monday. So this is where people can apply for any funding that is wellbeing related. So if it's wellbeing related, last time there was money allocated to Fiordland that was everything from the Vintage Machinery Museum getting $1,000 to help with the tractor, because that would kind of bring guys together for that wellbeing piece, and you know, talk restoration stuff, but also all the other things that guys talk about in that type of environment. And then right the way through to Anna Starr, who, I think it was Anna, was it maybe? No, it was somebody else who applied for the Fiordland Outdoor Play, and she wanted just rain jackets and gumboots for kids. So there is opportunity right the way across the board. It could be for a speaker to come and talk in a new parenting group, or it could be some form of education. It could be anything. The criteria around that grant is not huge, other than that it has to connect to the 5 ways to wellbeing. So keeping people active, keeping people connected, engaged, learning, and as long as the application is written in such a way that they do that, then generally those $1,000 grants have been very well supported. So that opens again, and anybody can apply. The criteria are not difficult. So if there's anybody that you know in the Fiordland area that would benefit from applying for those funds, then let them know about that. I also went to the Mental Health 101 workshop, which was also something that Te Hautoka had arranged to be delivered in our area. It was reasonably well supported. There were people from Great South there, and the benefit of the Great South people being there is that they are dealing with business people that have got significant stress at the moment. So actually them having a toolkit for them to be able to use when they were out and about dealing with people will be beneficial to them. There is a similar workshop coming up. It's called Addiction 101. And again, it's aimed at lay people who may be dealing with addiction, any form of addiction within their family environment. So again, it's not aimed at counsellors. It's more aimed at people that are perhaps supporting people in that and just learning a bit more about addiction and how to respond and how to manage that. That's on the 14th of March, if anybody's interested. Helped with a round of police recruitment. One of our police officers left the area for personal reasons, so they were looking at replacing him. An appointment was going to be made. I don't know if that has been successful yet, so it's not really my place to comment on who that might be until that becomes public knowledge. I've also attended a handful of meetings around the COVID response to Omicron. Mayor Tong has been running a meeting on a Friday afternoon, and there has been emergency management Southland have been hosting meetings, just bringing all the agencies in together. So I think, the main thing is that the preparation is being done and it is there. I think if people need information, then probably the best thing to do is to just either continue to tap into myself or one of our wellbeing providers. I'm happy to share a lot of information, but there is an awful lot of information out there as well. So it's just a question of managing it. I think one thing that Mayor Tong said the other day, which I'd like to pass on, is that we need to move people from a stage of COVID fear to COVID confidence. And that, if we're able to, the sooner we're able to do that, the sooner we'll actually be able to deal with this, perhaps in a more appropriate way. So that was meetings and events. Other matters arising. I'll come back to the parking provision in a minute, but the two signages, CCTV and a liquor ban signage, police were involved in just requesting that, and there is some, we will see signs go up to say that CCTV is now operational and up and running. Also had an approach from a member of our community talking about rubbish bins and toilets around the Steamers Beach and Tui Bay area and additional rubbish bins. My understanding was that we did relocate some rubbish bins to Steamers Beach, but I think it may be something that with increased usage, we just perhaps need to see whether we do have enough there. I know that's come up in conversation, and I think, Ben, it was you that talked about the repairs to the wooden restraints for cars. And again, that's just a tidy up of that area. If the board is supportive, I think the best way to handle the smaller items of those two things is to actually go and see if that can go into a Parks and Reserves, not into a budget, but see if that can be done within a Parks and Reserves budget as part of ongoing maintenance, as opposed to making a specific project out of it. I'll come back to the Community Service Awards again as well. So Aero Club Fly-In was postponed now to 2023. As we know, this is not the only event. When I wrote this, the reason I included this particular event in here was because the airport were going to give them a dispensation in terms of landing fees and reduce that. But as we know, there are a lot of other events that have been cancelled, and this is just a moving ball game. Nice to see, though, on a positive note, that the new panels did go up in Linwood Cemetery. for everybody that was deceased since 2017, and the Lost and Not Forgotten panel was also upgraded as well to reflect more recent times. Okay. In terms of, I'll come back to reports in a minute as well. In terms of Community Futures Plan, just wanted to let everybody know that I also have met with the new principal at Fiordland College. And Stephen has, in my mind, is certainly going to bring some fresh thinking to the area. And in terms of so I went with several hats on. I went with my community board hat on, but also with the Te Toka Southern Wellbeing Trust hat on as well. So looking at how youth can be more involved. Pre-COVID, we were actually going to run a session that was very similar to what had been done in a council and community chair strategy meeting back in February 2020, where we were doing a revisioning of a town. And I'm sure Rob will remember that Lumsden was the one that was actually chosen way back then, where we all broke off into different groups and actually revisioned Lumsden, growing to 100,000 people, retrenching as a town, and a couple of options in between. And there's certainly, Stephen's got some appetite to really connect youth into, revisioning the town, rather than them being on the sidelines. He's asked to come to our next community board meeting. So I've given him the dates for that. So quite keen in seeing how our youth can be engaged in some of our local government stuff, as opposed to necessarily, just sort of having anecdotal connections and contacts. So that was exciting. That was a very exciting move. And Active Southland are also looking at working in that space. So just again, doing some dot joining and making some connections there. In terms of the Community Service Awards, I think there was a decision, so an overall decision has been made that these will remain at board level. So we just basically now need to find a time where we think that it will be, so we can approach both Alistair Burgess and Carol Brown to do those awards. So just want to kind of go around everybody and see if there's a general time frame that we want to try and do this in, bearing in mind that we just have to arrange the certificates.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Ryan.
Easter?
Yeah.
Sorry, which one, Diane? Sooner rather than later?
Yeah, well, sooner rather than later, definitely before Easter.
Yeah. Okay. Are we thinking this will still be an evening? Maybe a weekday evening? Yes, nodding.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think probably the best thing to do is just try check in. I've got a couple of dates from Alistair where he's not available. I need to find out the same from Carol. And I think the intent still would be, I guess with COVID, do we want these to be two separate events? I know from a time perspective, generally we were going to bring them together. That we will need to bear in mind COVID-based restrictions in terms of managing it.
Where were we going to have it? Had we thought about that?
That's probably one of the $1 million questions. Have we got any down in Manipuri, I would suggest, given our applicants?
Yeah, I thought maybe
Manipuri.
Maybe the airport.
Maybe the
Airport would be good.
Yeah. Okay. The airport, I am imagining, will require vaccine certificates. Can anybody confirm whether, Simon, are you aware whether airport or Lagi even, would they require vaccine certificates for anybody attending the airport?
No, I don't think it would, because it's not serving food and it's a venue. So like the other venue hires, it would be subject to just the government's restrictions on numbers. If you have vaccine passes, you can have higher numbers. If you don't have vaccine passes, then you're restricted to the lesser, was 25.
25 without and 100 with. Okay. All right. Airport is a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. I will do a little bit more investigation around that, and we can come back to everybody. What I would like from everybody is, can you just flick me any dates in March then that you're not going to be available, please, so that we can ideally get the board together and actually recognise these two people, given this is going to be done locally. Councillor Kramer has offered to present the awards as well.
Thank you.
All right. So the last thing I just bring up is the parking provision. There has been an approach for provision of parking outside the Kepler restaurant, and in terms of this, we've actually stated so far to date that the overall scope of what we're doing from a community perspective and from the perspective of the fact that we may be looking at the whole future layout of the town when we look at our urban planning and our rescoping, is something that we need to bear in mind. We've also looked at it on the basis of setting any precedents and being very careful not to set any precedents that benefit specific operators. So I'm just flagging that at this stage, that there has been application, and that the roading people have indicated that the provision of any car parking in that area is actually probably going to compromise both the and just leave a very skinny it'll leave a very skinny trail around from the crescent around down the main part of town, and that for every park, I think it is, that you need about 12 meters of space. So the additional space it would take out potentially outweighs the parking provision that it will actually provide. So we just need to be aware of that, and that is currently working through its due process. In terms of the updates, are there any Manipuri updates?
Well, we couldn't have our drop-in because of the face-to-face meeting stuff that we're not doing at the moment. But Mary did email everyone who's ever put their name down on our sheets for future communication. So I don't know if did anyone get back to you, Mary?
Two people, different families, got back to me to say that they were going to be out of town, and there was nothing else positive at all.
Okay.
Right.
So
I had a up with Bridget and Angie just about where things are in terms of particularly the foreshore review and when that sort of work is going to get done, in terms of when they're going to start talking to the community there. So hopefully that'll be sometime later this year. And just nitty-gritty stuff like the playground rocker got broken almost straight away when it got put back in and things like that, but it's getting fixed. And they're working with the Manipuri Art Group at the moment on a memorandum of understanding for future use of that side room in the hall, so it can't be hired because that particular group has got all of their treasures in there, including some paintings worth a few $1,000s, that they would rather not have that room hired out. So they're just going to work through something with them about that. So that's good. And I'm working with a few of the locals to start a committee or do a subcommittee with the swimming pool group to start taking care of the tennis courts. So watch the space for tennis courts there.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. I haven't had any feedback from Max regarding anything that's rural, so unless there's anybody who's got anything with that. Tourism is not particularly active right now.
What was that word?
Yeah. Don't think there's any.
Just on the other, Sarah, just on the other side of that, there is a lot of people, New Zealanders, coming down, travelling around. You see quite a few of them, especially just a couple of weekends ago. There was campers everywhere. So there is New Zealand tourists having a good look around.
There is movement. I think fair to say that the movement compared to other parts of the country is actually quite a lot different. So whilst people are moving around, I think there's certainly the feedback I heard from accommodation providers post 10th of January was that things are pretty dire looking forwards. From my perspective, I think it was really good to see that the government has announced another package which opens on Monday, and certainly from a community board post point of view, I will put some information up about that. So businesses are going to have to compare their incomes pre 15 February to post 15 February, and if they're 40% down, then they'll be able to qualify. Difficulty is we're already 40% down on 40%
Exactly.
down on 40%.
Yeah, where do you start?
Down.
That's exactly
So
right. Where's the start?
Where's the benchmark? The only saving grace is I think that probably that time frame between the 1st and the 10th of January, where hopefully people will be able to qualify on that basis, or take into account that Kepler and Hop and Vine weekend, and actually use that within their benchmark percentages. But it's certainly gets tougher and tougher to qualify because of the timeframes that are actually put in place.
Yeah.
But
Through you, Madam Chair, I agree with that, and it is getting. I'm not 100% how much support this new package is going to offer local businesses, but I think it's probably something that we all need to be aware of as well going forward. That, like I've already said previously, this next 6 months to 8 to 12 is going to probably be the toughest time that we've seen. So there will be those businesses that probably need to, even if it's just an air to steam off into, or try and point them in the right direction for advice and help. But it's going to get pretty dire out there over the next 6 months. So
and 6 weeks. I mean, who knows where everything will be in 6 weeks? Because the rollout of Omicron is, it will have an impact. I think I'll go back to my point I made a little bit earlier, is moving from COVID fear to COVID confidence. The issue, I think, for us here is whether we end up in a similar situation to Queenstown, where we have multiple businesses closed and therefore no ability to earn any income at all. And that's until there's actually a shift in policy from a government perspective. That's something that we potentially are going to have to face, and you're exactly right, Brian. It's the hardest time is potentially still yet to come.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, in addition to what you're saying, people got to have that confidence to actually travel. And that's part of that Omicron confidence. And, they've always said since day one, it's going to be a 3 to 5 year situation. We're in year 3. And hopefully that their prediction was wrong, that it goes to year 5. But certainly year 3 was always going to be a significant challenge for operators. And it's certainly looking that way. And even if things get a little bit more relaxed with Omicron and people do travel around, I don't think, and I don't want to be banging it down, there's not going to be thousands and thousands of people jump on a plane and come to New Zealand, or thousands and thousands of people are going to jump on a plane from Auckland and come back down this way. So I think we have to be realistic. And I think your comments are very, very pertinent, Ryan, that we need to think about our business people that are going to suffer this coming year.
Yep.
I think it comes back to us not being a winter destination.
Correct.
Yes.
I think that's actually the crux of it. People are traveling.
Yes.
They are traveling. I've just travelled recently, and you will see quite different attitudes in different places. Queenstown was phenomenally quiet, but when you go further north, people are just carrying on as normal. And Aucklanders are actually very happy to travel. And they are traveling and continuing to go on holidays and do things. So it just depends, and it just depends where people live, what their work is, and whether they can potentially, if they are away, get back to their hometown, which you are allowed to do. You're allowed to
one thing I think we're going to find as well, especially being this far down country, that we've not really had to deal with Omicron or COVID in general as such as the North Island has. So therefore their confidence is a lot stronger with dealing with it. And what we're sort of finding now is that even though there's no actual no lockdown restrictions on people, we're doing it to ourselves. And the general public, and
that's certainly happening here in Tiana. I've heard
exactly right. The fear is creating them to be, they're just doing everything online. I'd imagine like our local supermarket, Fresh Choice, their online services have gone through the roof since the Omicron variants got out and down this far. It's just something to bear in mind as well.
I think the confidence is the flying pace at the moment because of flights, particularly in and out of Queenstown. I'm not, there haven't been any out of Invercargill identified so far, but flights in and out of Queenstown have definitely been identified.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Event Centre. Quick update on that, please, Ben.
Nothing really new at the event centre other than the main facade, aluminium emergency doors cannot be built at this point as they can't get a certain extrusion out of Auckland. They've got about 60% of it. They can't get the rest, so they haven't started that. But other than that, it's just normal ongoings at the event centre. Nothing to really tell.
Kitchen underway?
Kitchen's in the full process, yep. And Simon is getting back with his final quote for all of us on the board. So hopefully that'll be underway in the next 3 months is the goal.
Right.
Yeah. Just pricing stainless bench tops and the final pieces to the park.
Yeah, brilliant. Anything on the Museum Trust, Mabel?
No, not really. They are looking at doing another extension. So they're just in that process at the moment. So going through the resource consent, building consent, that sort of thing. So they are looking for a slight extension, so which is good. They're doing really well, those guys. Doing really well.
That's great.
Just sorry, can I just jump back to Ben for a second? Events. Everything went well with the Beer Fest?
Yes, they're very happy and they cleaned up beautifully this time. So yeah, no complaints from Jude or Sean or the managing front. They were quite happy with it. Everything went well.
It's good.
A lot better than the first time. A lot happier, yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
That's good to hear.
it was all outside, so it was really good. I really enjoyed my day.
Yeah, I missed it this year. I was away, but there are apparently a lot more umbrellas and just a bit better.
More umbrellas, yeah, but everyone was outside. No one was indoors.
Yeah, it was a lot better, yeah. So that's good. And looking to bigger and better as years go by. So it's good.
It's very positive. It was such a positive weekend for the town. Okay, Fiordland Retirement Housing Trust. Basically, that's at the point where it's starting to really wrap up. It's just had its financials done, which will go before the trustees 19th of March. And then at that point, it will look and see if there's any funds to return through the board or through council for use within the Te Anau community. It's already repaid the loan to the community board that it had, the $40,000 that was borrowed some time ago. And so within the next sort of 6 months, we'll be looking at how we wrap it all up. So wrapping up any outstanding repairs and maintenance. There's a little bit of landscaping to do before the end of the financial year. Fence to go up. But once that's sorted, and then we will work out our final tax obligations, and then there'll be a determination on what happens from there. So that's a decision that the trustees will make. And then last but not least, Milford Soundtrust.
We had a trust meeting the other night, and we have made some amendments to our deed. We've reduced the number of trustees that we need, and we've also had a bit of a refocus of the trust itself. We had a discussion about the rec centre, which was one of the key aspects that we really wanted to implement over the last several years. And of course, since the flood of 2020, that's really been put on hold. In addition to that, we have also continued not to collect the levies from the concessionaires, from the operators there. We recognise the hardship that they're going through, and every year we used to collect, let's say, levies from them based on the number of staff that they employed, etc. And we use that money to build a rec centre. We built a walking track, and we've done some other infrastructures there as well that would benefit the actual community. And so we've decided that we would continue to put that on hold based on the difficult times that Milford is continuing to experience. Apart from that, very, very quiet because there are no activities happening. So we just sort of a bit of a holding pattern, and that's where it's basically at. Will there be covered, Simon? That's about it. Yeah. Cheers.
Oh, all right.
And just on that, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was an article that's run today, just sort of covering the stuff that Councillor Kramer's just mentioned.
Okay. The other thing that I would like to add, and I think it should be a concern to your community board as well, Madam Chair, and that is the lack of progress with the Milford Opportunities Program, the MOPS program. And it seems to have gone into limbo. It seems to be taking forever to appoint a director, and that seems to be the reason why everything just sort of seems to be stagnant at the moment. So very concerning that that hasn't continued with its momentum that it did have, and it just seems to have, as I say, stalled for an interim period. So I do hope that it gets some traction in the very near future, because it is vital to Te Anau Fiordland that the implementation of, or working up some of those ideas and concepts that the initial team produced, and that they actually get on with it, because it does have a significant impact. And I might say not just to Fiordland, but I think all of Southland District, quite honestly. So fingers crossed, they'll get some movement on that. But it is certainly a worry of mine that it's just been sitting still for far too long.
Yeah, there was a decision to keep that keep the $150,000 that we had
That's right.
put in the project in the projects list for this year. We've kept it in this year with the hope that the director will be appointed sooner rather than later, and on that basis that we will be able to actually make our contribution to that particular project in terms of some of the scoping that needs to be done, and that
and wouldn't it
the redesign and the scoping spaces.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to spend the money?
It would be great to spend the money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is this through lack of people stepping forward for the job, or?
Well, from the knowledge that I've gleaned, that they didn't have any suitable applicants that applied for the director's role, and have gone back out to the market, but that's taken something like 5 months.
Yeah.
So it does sort of intrigue me that a whole project of this scale could be held up because of that one particular appointment not having been made. They've got a chair, they've got a board. Surely there's an interim arrangement that could have kept that momentum going. And to my knowledge, that momentum has not continued. And I'll dare say I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but I've heard nothing in recent times at all. It's just gone absolutely quiet, silent. So real concern.
Okay, Simon, would you like to make a comment from a Milford Ops perspective?
Not at this stage, Madam Chair.
All right, no, that's fine. But we have, as I say, we have kept that 150,000 to within this budget, within this financial year, with the aim that we will be able to spend it. So I hope that will be the case. I do agree with your comments and certainly endorse the fact that appointment is one that's critical. It's a critical appointment, and I think, probably just to balance that out a little bit, the risk of getting it wrong is probably just as or could be worse than the risk of actually having a delay. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that is an appointment that's actually made. Yeah, because I think we're ready to go. I think I think from a board, then let's consider what we can do. And I think things like the project that I mentioned in with the school is certainly a way of keeping the community engaged. So I would, if we can continue to do things like that so that we're continuing to gather ideas, then I think there's some benefits in us doing that as a board. All right. Okay. All right. I move then that my report be accepted. And could I get a seconder for that, please?
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
I thought that was you waving your arm, but I wasn't sure. It was kind of off camera. So
it's over there somewhere.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say yes.
Yes.
So that is carried. All right. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. Just before I close, are there any other questions, comments, observations from around the group?
If I may, Madam Chair, I might just like to point out that Council is in the process of finalising its annual plan, and once that's pretty well completed, there's a full intention that community boards, chairs community boards, will be informed before it goes public, so that our boards are fully informed of what's going to be in that particular plan. And the other thing, of course, is you have seen in the council report, the Stewart Island levy is going up for consultation, and it's looking at an increase from $5 to $15. And as I say, that's going up for consultation with the Stewart Island community, and we will look forward to their feedback and take any sort of feedback and comments on board before any final decision is made. But there may be some adverse comments with regards to the increase, but I can't stress enough that that is a it is an opportunity to consult with the community. Council is not saying it's 15. Council is saying here's a range, and we're looking forward to the community feedback on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm meeting.
Yep. No, thank you for that. Have you got anything else you want to let us know?
Just indicating that I'm meeting regularly with the mayors on the Southland and Otago mayors, and also the South Island. And one, of course, the key issues there is the three waters, and we continue to work on that mostly on a collective basis. So watch this space at the moment. So we're still working on it and trying to encourage government to consider some alternative models and options. And we'll just see where that actually goes. I mean, you'll all be aware that it's been mandated. Now we're really focused on how it's going to work.
It was interesting, though, in the media recently to see that it had been pushed out or delayed or postponed.
No, it has. The only reason it hasn't gone through legislation is just purely from time. They haven't got the time to actually get it through at the moment, but they're certainly working on it. The delay is allowing for some more feedback from councils and communities and other organisations as well. Of course, the South Island, we're heavily involved with discussions with Ngāi Tahu, who have that basically all South Island under their area. So there's ongoing discussions with them as well to see how we can work together collectively, meet the Treaty of Waitangi requirements. And I have to say that Ngāi Tahu, and I met with them through Zoom again this morning between 8 and 9:30, and they reinforced again that they have no desire to own the ownership of any of the assets at all. And they've made that abundantly clear, and unfortunately that's not some of the messages that is going out to some of our communities throughout the South Island, but they have absolutely no desire to have ownership. They totally oppose privatisation of the three waters, so they've certainly made that abundantly clear as well. And they have a desire to ensure, like we do, that every community has good drinking water and good wastewater systems, and that we look after our environment much better than we have done in the past. And there's certainly some lessons to be learned as to how we have not looked after our environment. Yeah, those are ongoing discussions. I also can advise that I've arranged for a workshop of my committee, the Services and Asset Committee, purely to discuss the three waters. And I've invited Local Government New Zealand representation, Community for Democracy, Ngāi Tahu, iwi, and Otago South and Mayoral Forum. So trying to ensure that my committee, which is made up of all the councillors, will get as much information, cross-information as possible, because there is a lot of discussion amongst our council table, which is good. And we just need to reconsider our position and our views in a considered way. And that's being scheduled for Monday, the 28th, which is next week, Monday. I'll be chairing that. Unfortunately, it will be done by Zoom, but make it the best as we possibly can. So as I say, we've got a number of speakers, and they'll be provided with an opportunity to sort of put their views forward. And then at the conclusion of those presentations, I will provide an opportunity for my committee to have a good, robust discussion and see where that particular discussion lands.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. That's well worth us keeping up to date with what's going on in that arena. So ultimately, it's going to impact everybody.
Yep.
Okay. Lagi, I'm just wondering if I'm going to bring the meeting to a close. It'd be just useful to have everybody stay on for a little minute, or for the community board members just to stay on for a minute or two. Are you able to hand over the
Yes, that's
to me? So